You're welcome to another time in class. So today we're going to be looking at asynchronous programming and promises in TypeScript. Asynchronous programming and promises in TypeScript. All right. So let's begin by we're going to be focused on async, await. All these are concepts that you need to know on this particular topic. Async, await, promise, and JSON. First of all, what's asynchronous programming? Asynchronous programming allows your code to run tasks without blocking other operations. All right. So asynchronous programming allows your code to run tasks without blocking other operations. Example of such is when you are dealing with an API. What's an API? API is an external server in which you try to retrieve data from while building your own web page. So let's say you are building a weather application where people can check weather, all right, but you don't have that weather inherent inside those weather data inherent inside of your client, that is your web application. So you have to make do with a server that provides those data so that can be able to display them on your web page. All right. So such operations is called asynchronous program where you have to relate to an API server, get data, and use it to populate your website or your application. That has to do with asynchronous programming. All right. So we're going to look at what they are seeing, their way, the promise, and JSON. Let me begin for JSON. JSON is a lightweight object in which servers like APIs and clients like web applications can share data. All right. It's a lightweight object in which APIs or servers can share data with clients. All right. Then we have the promise. Promises are the promise is what you expect when you try to promise what you expect, the data you expect when you are fetching from an API. All right. Then we have the async and await, which is used to slow down the application as you are fetching. All right. So I'm going to look at okay, like I said, promise represent a value that will be available, what you expect actually. All right. So take a look as an example. Let's look at this example here. So we have three APIs we want to work with. We want to try to retrieve an API and do the practical. So okay, dummy JSON. All right, these are three API that we can work with actually. So let's say we want to work with the you see three fake REST API for placeholder JSON data. All right, so come here, make use of okay, let's make use of products here. So these are the data that it contains, and this is the link. Very, very importantly, if you notice that if you look at this now, this product contains certain properties which you are going to make use of, like the ID. It contains description. It contains, you need to take note of this because this determines how you are going to set up your program to receive this data. All right. So we have the title, we have description, we have the price. So let's take note of ID, description. Okay, no, title, description. Then we'll say what else? We say price, title, description, price. Then I think if there's title, I want us to take note of title also. Take note of title here. All right, so let's just take note of that for now. So come here. So first things first is this adding type safety. That's the first things first. All right. So here we are fetching from a product API. So let's add the type. We say okay, type. Okay, so let's go ahead. We say type. So let's put the type products. So we're going to determine the type. We're going to type the product based on what we think are the data we want to retrieve from the product. And from what I showed us on that API, there, we have the properties like price. We have properties like let's go back there. We have properties like title. We have properties like price. We have title. We have description, we have price. Let's work with three of them. So let's type them so that we'll not have issues. So we'll come here equal to, we already type Elias to your time. Say, okay, we have, first of all, we have the, where is that? What is that again? Title. All right, good. So come on. So, okay, we have the title. And looking at that title, you know it's a string. So, we'll say title to be a string. So, we have to type what we are going to be receiving. Next is the price or description, which the string also. Then we have let's say price, which is a number. So we are typing what we are going to be receiving, number. All right. So next we now type our API response. We are going to work. So what is the API response? Type API response is equal to, so our API response equals to be, is going to be product array. So we'll come in. So okay, API response product, and we'll add the type to be product array. We know it's an array, so it will be product. So this is an array. All right. So we'll type, first of all, type. There's a lot more we can. If we say let's do this completely, if you go here, okay, we have description, we have category, we have rating, we have discount. So whatever we're going to make use of here, it's better we type it that okay, we're going to receive this from this particular. So we determine what kind of data is going to be, we are going to be receiving. So we come here, we're going to make use of this tree. That's how we type this tree. So here the API response, we're trying to say okay, our API response is actually a product array. If you look at this, discover that this is an array. You see that is an array. Product to see the array is a product array. So everything is inside of an array. So we can say okay, this, our API response is going to be a product array. So first of all, before you start writing any code, you first of all study the API you are working with. All right, study the API, know what is returning, know how it's returning it before doing anything else. All right. So come here, study this. Okay, it's returning these properties. So we are determining okay, what is data type for this property is going to return. Okay, then the API itself is returning a product array. All right, so it's important you get us set up. So before you now before you begin to write the logic to choose. So let's say const fetch data is equal to, so we have an arrow function. So here, very importantly, here we're going to type what this will be returning. First of all, note that you are dealing with an API, so we're going to the async here that helps to slow down as we are retrieving from the API. So here we say enter here. So since we are dealing with an API, at this point we come and type and say, okay, we're dealing is returning a promise. All right, and not just a promise, it is void because we are console logging it actually. It is void. Perfect. So here, returning a promise, returning function action. So first of all, at the end of this we are typing the function what is going to return. It's returning a promise and is void because we are console logging the data. We're not returning. So it's going to return a promise and is void. All right, so we'll come here and say, okay, we'll now say, okay, const response. I want to type our response to, yeah, to say that this is the response, type our response here. Type this variable response the interface of fetch between a that represent the response to a request. So I'm going to type the type of this particular variable to be a response that is expecting something from an API. So response now be equal to await await fetch. So what are we fetching? That will be we copied it from the API there. So where we got it from, the API link. Alright, so we'll come here, we say fetch, so we'll come and say okay, const data, this is now the API response. So we're going to tag this as the API response, which is, like I said, is a product array. So we'll come some data, we say API response, then equals to await response dot JSON. I'll say the JSON format dot JSON here. Perfect. So we see this here now. Perfect. So we come and say console.log, let's console log whatever we have retrieved, console.log our data. Let's see what's going to return. Let's check out, let's compare. Okay, come here. It's fetching. Okay, it's not going to because we've not called the function. So come and call the function outside, which is fetch. They are here. I have to leave data on so that I can be able to fetch this. So let's just run this as soon as possible. Come here. So let's compile again. Okay, so from here, load, let it fetch, and let's see. So it has fetched. So it has fetched here. It has fetched here. So we come and see it has fetched. So that's how to work with APIs, all right? So we'll be able to retrieve from this API, and these are the products here, all right? So please take note of this. Take note of the async, of the await, the promise, and the JSON. The promise is what you expect from as the promise, what is expected, all right? The JSON is the format in which data are exchanged between servers and your client, which is your web application. They will have async array. This is used to slow down the operation so that it can accommodate traveling to fetch data and return it. All right. Thank you very much. See you some other time.